Does your heart make most of your decisions for you? Or is it usually true that your choices are based on clear-cut 2 plus 2 logic? Have you ever done something nice for someone, even if it meant that you had to give something up? Have you ever looked at an old photo and felt sad and happy at the same time? I'm pretty sure you answered yes to all of those questions. I did too. Even though I'm older than you, probably a very different person, I have my own personal experiences and beliefs and opinions just like you. So why did we both say yes to all of those questions? Simplest answer, we're human beings. Slightly more complicated answer, we're human beings, and human beings are all very different and yet very similar. Now you're wondering, what does psychology have to do with this? Psychology is the study of the whole beautiful, messy human experience, and in this lesson, you will come to understand why and how psychology provides answers and explanations for what makes us different, what we all share, and how we can all be better. In this lesson, you will be able to define psychology as a social science, describe the relationship between theory and research in psychology. So let's get started. The core of psychology is the exploration of this human experience. So to put it simply, why do people think, feel, and act the way they do, and how people interact with each other as well as the world around them? So in other words, psychology explores how you think and feel and how you behave in relation to your unique combination of personal and environmental factors that we call context. And while each of us is different and has unique experiences in life, there is still a lot that we have in common with each other. So even if we speak a different language, we eat different foods, we are all equally able to think about things, to feel emotion, to remember events and people, and learn new things. We have different beliefs and attitudes, and of course, we are different in how we behave. And a lot of that is determined by the culture we live in, the school we go to, the kind of family we belong to, and so on. And that is the context I mentioned earlier. This context works with our brains and our capacity to think, to learn, to feel, to remember, and it produces subtle differences between us while also keeping some things exactly the same. For instance, very rare to meet someone who doesn't smile when they're feeling happy, but it's also rare to meet someone who's never used a fake smile to pretend they're happy when they're not. The difference, though, is in what makes a person happy or unhappy. And that difference, you got it, it comes from context. Psychologists look for answers to questions about why people act in certain ways, how certain beliefs are formed, what makes people change, and so on. And because the human experience is so incredibly vast, psychologists try to find patterns that explain and describe and predict human behavior, but also help us understand how to control or change these behaviors. For instance, one of the questions I asked you right at the beginning of this lesson was about whether your decisions are mostly from your heart, are they based on emotions, or are they based on logic, meaning they come from calculating your benefits and costs and they do not include emotion. So the larger question is, how do you and I really make decisions? Psychology has obviously tackled this question scientifically all the way since this heart and mind debate first emerged in BC 335 between Plato and Aristotle. Now, what do I mean scientifically? Just like Oppenheimer and his team came up with 100 different experiments and investigations that proved nuclear fission to be true, psychologists also conduct different kinds of investigations and tests that give them evidence. This evidence in psychology are the facts that prove and sometimes disprove psychologists' answers to questions about why people think and feel and act the way that they do. The correct answers to these questions result in interconnected ideas. We call these sets of ideas theories. Theories in psychology help us to describe, explain, predict, and also control human behavior, again based on evidence or facts. So psychologists, like chemists or physicists, also take an objective approach to answering questions about human behavior and determining strategies to change behavior. Objective means unbiased, not based on personal opinion, but based on facts, something that can be tested, can be verified. You can check if it's true. This is opposed to or different from taking a subjective view, which is based on personal opinion, because obviously that is based on different points of view and it will have bias. To understand why psychologists do what they do, you've got to understand the relationship between theory and research. So the relationship between those connected ideas that form the explanations and the answers, which are theories, and the collection of evidence that decides which answers and explanations are true, which is research. So keeping this possible answer in mind, psychologists conduct an investigation to check if they have the right answer. If they find enough evidence that their possible answer is correct, then they know that they can contribute and build a theory further. If the answer is incorrect, the investigation starts over with a new possible answer in mind. Research, or the investigations that give psychologists the chance to collect evidence to answer questions, will take a few different forms. So you've got experiments, observations, case studies, and self-reports, which is where you ask people to share their thoughts and their experiences. Now, whether it's through observations or experiments or interviews, psychologists will try to narrow down the facts that help to prove or disprove certain theories, and it is decades of research, decades of these investigations and fact-finding missions that have helped us to come up with a few theories of decision-making. These theories answer our questions about how we as human beings make decisions. What I can tell you is some of it is absolutely true, that it's emotion, and some of it is logic, and sometimes just our brains taking quick shortcuts. As you may be able to see now, it is research, which is including experimentation and observation, that helps psychologists to collect evidence, which helps them and us to understand human behavior and internal states. The evidence or the proof that is collected helps to challenge, revise, and build theories which explain how and why people behave, how they feel, and even predicts how they may behave, and describes behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes. So in the end, the evidence provides us with the knowledge that we can use to make our life better, or, in the example we've been using, to make more informed decisions in life. Ultimately, you should know that psychology is a social science and that research conducted by psychologists helps us to answer questions about how we think, how we feel, and act the way we do. And this research helps to build theories that explain, predict, describe, and even show us how to control human behavior and thought. Today, we talked about one very broad question that psychologists can answer, which is about how we make decisions. To give you a more detailed view of what the broad field of psychology looks like in action, next we'll talk about the everyday questions that psychologists can answer.